Before highway speed limiters, before electronic throttle controls, before computers told drivers how to shift, there was an era when a semi-truck was a raw, unfiltered machine, held together by iron, grease, and sheer mechanical stubbornness. These rigs didn't ask for your permission. They demanded respect. In the 1960s and 1970s, American roads were ruled by a breed of trucks so powerful, so loud, and so brutally engineered that modern trucks look like luxury sedans in comparison. These are the 10 semi-trucks from that golden age that were pure, uncompromising muscle. Every single one earned its legend. Number 1. The 1969 Kenworth W900. If you had to pick one truck that defined what an American semi should look and feel like, the 1969 Kenworth W900 would win that argument without breaking a sweat. Kenworth introduced the W900 in 1961, but by 1969 this machine had evolved into something that truckers considered the pinnacle of the road. The W900 was built around a long, bold hood that wasn't just for aesthetics. It housed massive engine options that gave drivers real, usable power. Truckers could order the W900 with the Cummins NHC 250 or the legendary Detroit diesel 6V71, which became one of the most recognizable engines in American trucking history. The 6V71 produced around 318 horsepower, which was substantial for the era, and it had a bark to it, a two-stroke growl that you could hear from a mile away. The cab was Spartan by today's standards, but built to survive decades of hard use. The frame was handcrafted aluminum, which helped reduce weight while keeping structural integrity. Every W900 that rolled off the Kenworth line in Renton, Washington, was built to order, meaning no two trucks were exactly alike. Drivers loved that. The W900 wasn't just a workhorse. It became a cultural icon. It appeared in films, on album covers, and in the minds of every kid who ever watched an 18-wheeler blow past them on the interstate. The 1969 version represents the truck at its most raw and honest. Before emissions regulations began shaping engine choices, before aerodynamics became a design priority. Just pure, unrestrained horsepower under that long hood. Number 2. The 1970 Peterbilt 359. Peterbilt has always had a reputation for building trucks that are as much about pride as they are about performance. And nowhere is that more evident than in the 359, introduced in 1967 and hitting its stride by 1970. The 359 became so deeply associated with trucking culture that it is arguably the most recognizable semi-truck ever built in the United States. The 359 featured a classic long-nosed conventional cab with a stainless steel grille that practically demanded attention. But behind that beautiful face was serious engineering. The 359 was offered with a range of powertrains, including the Cummins NTC 350, which produced 350 horsepower and 1,150 lb-ft of torque, numbers that were extraordinary for the time. For drivers who wanted even more, Caterpillar engine options were also available. The 359 was paired with Eaton Fuller transmissions, typically the iconic 13-speed or 18-speed Road Ranger gearboxes. These transmissions required real skill to operate, double clutching, knowing your RPMs, understanding road grade and load. The relationship between driver and machine on a 359 was intimate and demanding. There was no automation to save you if you got it wrong. The frame was constructed from heat-treated steel, and the hood opened in a butterfly configuration, allowing mechanics and owner-operators full access to the engine. Peterbilt built the 359 until 1987, and over that long production run, it became a fixture of long-haul trucking in North America. But the early 1970s versions, before any major regulatory changes altered engine choices, were the most powerful and uncompromised examples. Number 3. The 1965 Mack B61. Mack Trucks has been synonymous with heavy-duty American commercial vehicles since the early 20th century. And the B Series, produced from 1953 to 1966, represents one of the most important chapters in that story. The B61, the most popular variant in the lineup, was built for one purpose: to haul the heaviest loads under the most punishing conditions without complaint. The B61 was powered by Mack's own Thermodyne diesel engine, a design that Mack engineered and manufactured entirely in-house. This was a point of immense pride for Mack. While competitors sourced engines from Cummins or Detroit Diesel, Mack built its own. The Thermodyne END673 displaced 673 cubic inches and produced outputs in the range of 170 to 200 horsepower depending on configuration, combined with torque figures that made it exceptionally capable at moving heavy freight at low speeds. The B61 also used Mack's own Maxidyne engine in later configurations, which featured a broader power band that reduced the number of gear changes required on grades, a significant advantage for drivers hauling bulk materials or construction loads. The cab was set back over and behind the engine in a conventional configuration, and the truck's aggressive flat-nose silhouette with its distinctive chrome bulldog hood ornament made it instantly identifiable. The B61 was used extensively in construction, logging, oil field, and long-haul applications. Its durability was near legendary. Operators reported B61 trucks running for decades with basic maintenance, a testament to Mack's over-engineering philosophy. Number 4. The 1968 White Freightliner WFT 7242T. In an industry where steel was considered the only serious material for truck construction, Freightliner was quietly building trucks out of aluminum in the 1960s, and the industry thought they were crazy until they saw the results. The WFT 7242T, produced in the late 1960s, was a conventional cab model that prioritized payload capacity by reducing the truck's own weight dramatically. Freightliner had been building aluminum cab trucks since the early 1950s, initially as a division of Consolidated Freightways before becoming an independent entity and partnering with White Motor Corporation. By 1968, the Freightliner lineup was available with the Detroit Diesel 671 or the Cummins 335, both capable engines that pushed these lightweight trucks to impressive performance levels. The aluminum construction cut significant weight compared to steel-framed competitors, which meant operators could carry more legal payload per trip, a direct advantage in profitability. In an era before weigh station technology became sophisticated, some operators pushed these trucks well beyond their rated capacities, relying on the structural strength of the aluminum frame to hold together. The WFT 7242T featured a set-forward front axle design that improved weight distribution and maneuverability. The cab was functional and utilitarian. Freightliner wasn't interested in luxury. They were interested in efficiency. These trucks were bought by serious operators running serious mileage, and they delivered. Freightliner's engineering during this period laid the groundwork for the brand's eventual domination of the North American trucking market in later decades. Number 5. The 1971 International Harvester Transtar 4300. International Harvester was one of the largest truck manufacturers in the United States for much of the 20th century, and the Transtar series represented their flagship long-haul product during the late 1960s and early 1970s. The Transtar 4300, introduced in 1970, was a conventional cab model that brought together a range of powerful engine options with a driver-friendly cab design. The 4300 could be ordered with International's own DT466 diesel, or with third-party power from Cummins or Detroit Diesel. The Cummins NTC 290, producing 290 horsepower, was a popular choice, while the more aggressive operators went for the NTC 335 or NTC 350 variants. International paired these engines with both manual and, in limited cases, early automatic transmission options. The cab was notable for its lower floor height compared to competitors, which made entry and exit easier on multi-stop routes. The interior featured a wraparound dashboard that International marketed as a safety improvement, keeping controls within easy reach of the driver. The Transtar 4300 was particularly popular in the Midwest and Great Plains states, where grain hauling and cattle transport demanded a reliable, hard-working machine. International Harvester's reputation during this period was built on consistency. The Transtar wasn't flashy like a Peterbilt or a Kenworth, but it worked every single day without drama, and for many fleet operators that was exactly what they needed. Number 6. The 1967 Autocar A64B. Autocar is one of the oldest truck manufacturers in American history, tracing its roots to 1897. And by the late 1960s, they had built a reputation as the go-to brand for heavy construction and off-road applications. The A64B was a tandem-axle conventional designed for the most demanding vocational use cases: quarrying, heavy construction, logging, and oil field service. The A64B was powered by the Cummins NHC 250, or in higher spec configurations, the NTC 335. The cab was positioned close to the engine in a short-nose conventional layout, which gave the truck excellent visibility for maneuvering in tight job site conditions. The frame construction was deliberately overbuilt. Autocar used heavier steel and more robust suspension components than many road-going trucks of the era, knowing that their customers would abuse these machines daily. The A64B's tandem rear axle configuration gave it exceptional load-carrying capacity, and many examples were used as dump trucks in quarry and highway construction applications. The Eaton axles fitted to the rear were rated for extreme duty, and the front axles were similarly reinforced. Autocar trucks from this era rarely show up in films or popular culture because they weren't the glamorous long-haul rigs that captured the public imagination. But among people who worked in construction and extraction industries, the Autocar A64B was revered. It was the truck you called when the job was too tough for anything else. Number 7. The 1972 Kenworth C500. While the W900 was conquering the interstate highway system, Kenworth C500 was being sent to places where there were no highways at all. The C500, introduced in the late 1960s and reaching a peak of development by the early 1970s, was Kenworth's purpose-built severe-duty conventional. Oil fields, logging operations, mining sites, and remote construction projects demanded a truck that could handle conditions that would destroy lesser machines, and the C500 was built to deliver. The C500 used a set-forward front axle and a rugged steel cab with reinforced mounting points designed to absorb the punishment of rough terrain. Engine options included the Cummins NTC series and the Detroit Diesel 8 V71, a V8 configuration of the famous two-stroke engine that produced outputs up to 318 horsepower in naturally aspirated form and considerably more with turbocharging. The 8 V71T turbocharged version became a favorite among oil patch operators because it delivered strong power across a wide RPM range, which was critical when pulling heavy loads through soft ground, mud, or steep grades without the benefit of paved roads. The C500 also featured a range of axle and drivetrain configurations, including 6x6 and 8x6 all-wheel drive setups for the most extreme applications. In Alaskan oil field service, Canadian logging camps, and South American mining operations, the C500 built a reputation as indestructible. Kenworth trucks from this period operating in the Alaska pipeline construction project in the mid-1970s were almost exclusively C500 variants, and the conditions they endured were extraordinary. Number 8. The 1969 Mack R600. When Mack introduced the R series in 1966, they were replacing the legendary B series with a truck designed for the changing demands of interstate commerce. The R600 became the backbone of the R series lineup and one of the most popular Mack trucks ever produced. It combined the brand's traditional durability with a modernized cab design that offered better driver comfort and visibility. The R600 was available with Mack's own Maxidyne END 676 engine, which displaced 676 cubic inches and produced up to 237 horsepower in base configuration. What made the Maxidyne special was its torque curve. It produced maximum torque across a very wide RPM range, which meant drivers could run fewer gear changes on grades and at highway speed. This reduced driver fatigue significantly on long hauls. The R600 cab featured a fiberglass hood that was easier to open and lighter than steel alternatives. The interior was relatively roomy compared to the B series, and Mack offered a factory sleeper berth option that made the R600 a viable choice for coast-to-coast operations. Mack marketed the R600 heavily to fleet buyers, and major carriers across the United States added it to their lineups throughout the late 1960s and 1970s. The truck's durability lived up to the brand promise. R600 trucks that accumulated over 1 million miles were not uncommon, and many remained in service well into the 1990s, a testament to how overbuilt these machines were. Number 9. The 1974 Peterbilt 352 COE. Not every great truck from the 60s and 70s was a long-nose conventional, tub-over engine trucks, where the cab sits directly over the engine rather than behind a hood, were enormously popular during this era because they maximized the legal length available for cargo. The Peterbilt 352, introduced in the early 1960s and refined throughout the following decade, was the most prestigious cabover on the American market. The 352 featured Peterbilt's signature craftsmanship applied to the cabover format, polished aluminum trim, a bold front face, and an interior that was noticeably more refined than most competitors of the era. The cab tilted forward hydraulically for engine access, revealing the power plant beneath. Engine options for the 352 included the Cummins NTC 350, which was among the most powerful diesel engines available to civilian truckers in the early 1970s, producing 350 horsepower and over 1,000 lb-ft of torque. Detroit diesel V8 and V12 options were also available for operators who wanted maximum output. The 352 required a driving style adjustment compared to conventional trucks. Sitting directly over the front axle meant the driver experienced road shock differently, and the forward seating position required adaptation. But experienced cabover drivers swore by the visibility advantages, particularly in urban delivery environments and when backing into tight dock positions. The 352 cab was also available in a sleeper configuration, with Peterbilt offering both factory-installed and dealer-installed sleeper options. The combination of long-haul comfort, extreme power, and Peterbilt's legendary build quality made the 352 COE a favorite among owner-operators who ran transcontinental routes. Number 10. The 1970 Diamond T 931C. Diamond T is a name that most people outside the trucking industry don't recognize today, and that's a genuine shame. At its peak, Diamond T was producing some of the most well-engineered heavy trucks in the United States, and the 931C, built in the early 1970s before the brand was absorbed into White Motor Corporation, represents the pinnacle of their commercial truck engineering. The 931C was a tilt cab conventional that offered operators an unusually accessible engine compartment combined with the load-carrying advantages of a shorter overall vehicle length compared to long-nose conventionals. The cab featured a distinctive squared-off design with a wide front face that gave the truck a powerful, aggressive stance on the road. Engine options for the 931C included the Cummins NTC 290 and NTC 335, along with Detroit diesel alternatives. The truck was particularly popular in the Midwest grain hauling market, where its combination of power, reliability, and payload capacity made it a strong commercial proposition. Diamond T's engineering philosophy emphasized durability and owner-operator serviceability. The trucks were designed to be maintained by drivers who worked on their own rigs, with component access and standardized parts a priority. This was important in an era when breakdowns on remote highways were serious events, and getting a truck back on the road quickly was the difference between profit and catastrophe. When White Motor Corporation merged Diamond T with Rio to form Diamond Rio in 1967, and subsequently discontinued the Diamond T brand in 1967 as a separate entity, the industry lost one of its most innovative manufacturers. The 931C stands as one of the final and finest expressions of Diamond T's engineering legacy. What made the semi-trucks of the 1960s and 1970s so compelling isn't just nostalgia, though there's certainly plenty of that to go around. It's the fact that these machines represented a philosophy of transportation that no longer exists in its original form. They were built by manufacturers who believed that a truck should last for decades, that mechanical components should be repairable by the people who operated them, and that raw power, properly harnessed, was the most honest solution to the problem of moving freight across a continent. Drivers who operated these rigs understood their trucks in the Kenworth W900 and the Peterbilt 359 survived from this era and remain in production or in nostalgic demand because they captured something essential about American trucking that later generations didn't want to let go of. The Mack R600, the Freightliner WFT7242T, the International Transtar, the Autocar A64B, the Kenworth C500, the Peterbilt 352, the Mack B61, and the Diamond T931C are all part of the same story, a story about an industry at its most powerful, most creative, and most mechanical. These weren't trucks built by algorithms optimizing for fuel economy and aerodynamic drag. They were built by engineers who understood that the people driving these machines needed to trust them with their lives and their livelihoods, and that trust had to be earned through steel, through displacement, through torque, and through decades of accumulated knowledge about what it actually takes to move heavy freight across the American landscape. That era is gone. But the trucks remain, in museums, in restoration shops, at truck shows, and occasionally on the road, as rolling proof that there was a time when a semi-truck was not just a vehicle, it was a statement,